Do you want to run ads on Google Search, Google Maps, Gmail, YouTube, display, all over the place with one kind of ad? Well, you're in the right place, because in this video, we're going to show you how to run a Google Performance Max campaign. Now, Performance Max campaigns are relatively new. They're not that new, but in this video, my director of paid media here at Agent Launch, who manages well over 200 accounts, specifically for Google Ads for real estate, is going to show you how to actually build a really solid Google Ads Performance Max campaign. Now, there's a lot of things you need to do to prepare to run a campaign like this. It's not that simple. So we're going to walk you through step by step how you can actually go about doing that. Now, if this video is over your head and you do want our help doing this stuff for you, that is our business over at Agent Launch. That is what we do. We don't only build our clients Google Ads campaigns, Performance Max campaigns. We also build the systems behind the lead generation. We also recruit remote talent. We also help coach you on YouTube, and we do your video editing, and there's a whole lot of stuff we do under one umbrella at Agent Launch. And so if you are interested in working with us, you can go to agentlaunch.com/apply, fill out our short survey, get on a call with us, and we can tell you a little bit more about it. But that being said, if you do want our Google Ads cheat sheet, which is more for a traditional Google Ads campaign, but you'll see Axel uses a lot of that stuff in this video too, leave a comment below. We'll give you a copy of our Google PPC cheat sheet. I'll send you a link to it and you can opt into that. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Axel to get started with this video.
Hey everyone, it's Axel from Agent Launch, and today we're going to be looking at Performance Max campaigns for your real estate lead generation. So we're going to start by taking a dive into defining what a Performance Max campaign is and how they work. We're also going to talk about some prerequisites before you build one of these and some important notes to take into consideration before you build a campaign like this. We're going to do a little bit of live asset preparation, so then you have everything you need before you start constructing your campaign. And that's because this is not like a regular search campaign. There are some things you need to do within Google Ads before you launch one of these and build it. And finally, we're going to end the video with a live ad build to show you how you can build one of these in your Google Ads account. So I'm going to start talking about what a Performance Max campaign is. So essentially, this is a newer type of campaign that was launched in November 2021, and you can think of it as an upgraded version of a discovery campaign. So unlike a search campaign where you give keywords and you have headlines and descriptions, and unlike a display campaign where you have the same thing but you add photos, what you build within one of these is an asset group, unlike an ad group. And what you do is you essentially give Google a bunch of headlines, descriptions, photos, videos, things like that, and also different types of custom audiences. And what it'll do is it'll display your ad over every single one of Google's networks. So essentially your ads will be shown not just on search or on display networks, but it'll be shown on search, display, YouTube, Gmail, Google Maps, and all other Google platforms. That way it essentially provides you with the biggest audience possible within the Google network. So before you start one of these campaigns, there's three main prerequisites or notes that you essentially need to know before you launch one of these. And it's important that you know this and that you don't launch a campaign without doing any of the above here. So the first one being that you need to have ran a search and retargeting campaign for about 6 months or longer. And the reason for that is when you build a Performance Max campaign, if you just build one from scratch without having ran any ads before, it won't perform well at all. You need to have ran previous campaigns before to kind of see which kinds of keywords, audiences, and things like that work in your previous campaigns. And you're going to be using those as an asset for your Performance Max campaign to essentially give it something called an audience signal. And what it does is it makes your campaign work a lot better. And the reason it works a lot better is because this type of campaign is much more algorithm based. There's less optimizations you can do for it. So it's important that you launch one of these with previous data that you know works. So that's the first thing. The second thing you need to know is you need to be willing to spend a bit more money on a campaign like this as opposed to search. In a lot of markets on a search campaign, you can get away with just spending about $10 to $15 a day and leave it at that. Whereas for one of these, I would recommend that you spend at least $30 a day plus, so about $1,000 a month on top of your currently running search and display campaigns. And it comes back to the same reason as before. This type of campaign is very algorithm based, so you need to give it money to spend so then it can actually learn and give you the results, since there's a lot less optimizations that you can do on the back end. So that's the second thing to note. The third thing to know is that these campaigns take longer and take more time before they actually start working. So unlike a search campaign, it's not uncommon to launch some search campaigns and get leads within a couple hours, even in some cases. With these these, I would not make any assumptions and turn it off until at least a 4-week trial period. So because of the algorithm, the thing is these campaigns kind of work on a snowball effect. So what happens, unlike a search campaign, is with this one, your ads are being shown everywhere on every network Google has. And a lot of the time for the people to actually opt in as a lead, they have to see your ad consistently over the course of 2 or 3 weeks before they actually do opt in as an ad. But when that happens, that's when you'll probably start getting leads, and then you'll start getting new people into the audiences, which will essentially then convert later on at a 3-week period as well. So it's usually pretty important that you leave this running for about 4 weeks, get those initial leads coming in, and then from there, the consistency should start. So make sure you give this at least 4, preferably maybe 6 weeks before you turn it off and make any calls on this one. So now we're going to dive into some assets that you need to pre-build before you actually start building the campaign, and that's going to require about 5 or 6 steps. So before you actually start building your campaign, it's kind of important to understand what the structure of this campaign is going to look like. So like I mentioned before, unlike a search or display campaign where you have a campaign with ad groups under that campaign level, in a performance max campaign, that's actually known as an asset group instead. So what you want to have is essentially a campaign with multiple asset groups under that. And the way we're going to do it is a similar structure to what you should have in your search campaign. So we're going to have the main performance max campaign, and then we're going to have one asset group for every single location that you're targeting. So as an example, within this video, as you can see on my screen right now, I will be using one of our clients who's based in Oahu and do an ad build within his account to show you how to do this. And for him specifically, we will be targeting Honolulu and the North Shore on the Oahu Island in Hawaii. So keeping that in mind, what we're going to be building here is we're going to have one performance max campaign with 2 asset groups. We're going to have one for the Honolulu area, and we're also going to have one for the North Shore area. So that's the first thing you need to understand. It's just the basic structure. The next thing that you're going to need for your campaign are some photos. So what you're going to want to have is about 5 or 6 nice photos from your website for each location. So in this case, what I would want to do is go onto Lex's website and grab 5 or 6 very nice photos of some nice houses within the Honolulu area, and then do the same thing for the North Shore area and save those onto my desktop. So you want to have that. And as a side note, for your photos, make sure they are photos of some nice houses, that the lighting is clear and that they're well cropped and that they're not angled or shaky or anything like that. You want to make sure that the quality of these photos is actually very nice. I would personally recommend that you use a blend and a mix of different photos of exterior and interiors of the home, and preferably not photos of yourself. From retargeting campaigns that we've ran in the past, those tend to perform a lot better. So I would say 5 or 6 photos for each location is good, and make sure that they're nice photos of either the interior or exterior of the house within that specific area. So that's the first thing you need. The second thing you need is the logo. So you're going to want to have your company logo on hand. I'm assuming you probably have that on your desktop saved somewhere, but if you don't, here's the easy way to do it. So I can go onto Lex's website right here, and let's say I didn't have access to his logo. I can see that the logo is right up here on the top left corner of the screen. And what I can do is I can just click on this and hold and just drag it out and then drop it onto my desktop. And what that will do is it'll essentially just give you a nice cropped version of your logo. And then you can drop that into the same folder as your saved photos. So that's the first and second thing you need. It's essentially just your logo and some nice photos from your website for each location. The next thing you're going to want to need is your asset groups, but more specifically, some custom intent audiences as they're called. So before you do this step, this is where you're going to need to go into your search campaign and look at previous data for about the past 6 months. And essentially from there, you want to filter out which keywords have been performing the best for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Lex's account and do exactly that. And any keyword that works very well for each of the 2 locations, I'm going to be noting them and copy pasting them into a Google Doc on the right. So for the first campaign, what I'm going to do is click on his buyer campaign right here and look at the previous 6 months of data from September until today, which is February 28th, and apply that. And within his Honolulu campaign, what I'm going to do right now is go and click on that ad group and then go into the search keywords area. So these are essentially the keywords we're using currently for his performing campaign. And what I want to look at now is the cost per conversion for each of these. So I can see that the first one right here is performing the worst at $16 a lead on average, and the bottom one right here is performing the best at about $7.39. He also has an average of about $8.88 a lead. So I'm going to take that into consideration to kind of tell which keywords are not worth including. So in my opinion, I would say any of the ones that are about under that $12 mark are worth adding into this custom intent audience. So what I'm going to do is take note of these 4 keywords down here, and I'm going to paste them into my Google Docs. So this one right here, this one right here, this one right here, and finally this one right here. So now I have my keywords, which I know work and perform very well within my search campaign for Honolulu. And I'm going to do the exact same thing, but for the North Shore area. So now I'm going to go into my North Shore ad group, and I'm still within the keywords area. And I'm going to do the same thing. So here the average is slightly lower, so $7.49. So I'm going to look at anything that's probably under that $9 benchmark, as I would consider that to be performing quite well. So there's a couple more in this one that performed quite nicely, specifically this one all the way down to this one. This one has a cost per lead of 0. That does not mean he's getting free leads. That means he's gotten 0 leads. So I'm not going to actually include that one. So I'm going to include this one and the next 4 or 5 following it, except for the bottom one. So I'm going to copy and paste these just like I did in the previous ad group into my Google Doc. And so now I have 4 keywords, which I know work very well for Honolulu, and 5 keywords, which I know work very well for the North Shore area. So now we can grab these and go ahead and start building our custom intent audiences. So the way to build one of these is you go into the audience section within your ad account. So you want to click on tools and settings up here, go left, and under shared library, you're going to want to click on audience manager. So once you're in here, what you're going to want to do is go into custom segments up here, and you'll see that this is empty, which will probably be the case for your ad account as well. And you're going to want to click on this plus button. And now I'm going to name this something that's relevant. So I'm going to start with the Honolulu one and call it Honolulu Custom Intent. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Honolulu keywords, which work and perform very well for him. And I'm going to click on this option right here, and I'm going to paste them right there, and they should come up as a split set of keywords, just like it did right here. So then you know what this audience does. Essentially, this is now going to create an audience of people who have searched these terms very recently within either the YouTube or the Google search engine. So you're essentially going to be using this audience afterwards to add that extra layer to your Performance Max campaigns, because you know this works on your search campaigns. So you might as well add this as an extra layer of targeting for your Performance Max. So anyone who would have searched any of these keywords within the 2 different types of search engines will be able to now see your Performance Max campaigns once we add this to the asset group. So I'm going to click save, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing, but for the North Shore one. So I'm just going to copy and paste this headline to be a little bit quicker here, and click on plus and paste that there, but instead call it North Shore, because this is going to go for the North Shore Custom Intent and Performance Max asset group. And same thing as before, I'm going to go into my Google Doc here, grab my keywords for that specific area and paste them into here and click save. So now what we have essentially is 2 custom intent audiences, one for North Shore and one for Honolulu, which we can then now use to add to our asset groups within the Performance Max campaign. So that's the 3rd and 4th thing you need for this. And finally, the last thing you'll need, and this is why you need to have ran a retargeting campaign before, is you'll need to have your retargeting audience on hand, and specifically the retargeting audience, which includes every single website visitor of your website within the past 180 days. If you're not sure where it is, go into your tools and settings up here and go back into the audience manager, and it should be visible up here if you set this up correctly. If it's not there, or if it's something different, be sure to check out Eric's video on retargeting campaigns. That way you know how to build one of these. Just make sure that you have this retargeting audience on hand, because we will be adding this into the Performance Max campaign as well on top of the custom intent audiences. So those are all the things we need to go ahead and start building this. So the next thing we're going to do is start building this live. Keep in mind, I'll be working within this ad account for the whole video, and I will also have this Performance Max campaign cheat sheet with me to make things a little bit faster. If you want access to this, just drop a comment in the video and you can get access within the link below. So that's where you can find that. And what this includes essentially is all the headlines, the descriptions, site links, different types of extensions that will essentially be using for this Google ad build. So what we're going to start by doing is click on all your campaigns and click on your campaign tab right here to have them all listed out. And you're going to click on this plus button and click on a new campaigns. Just like your other campaigns, what we're wanting to get out of this campaign is leads. So that is the main goal of this one. So we're going to start by clicking on that. And then we're going to click on continue. Down here, we're going to select the campaign type. So for this one, we're doing Performance Max. So I'm going to be clicking on that box right there. And then it's just going to ask you to name it. So name it something that is relevant to what you're trying to do. So for his case, we're going to have Oahu Performance Max campaign. And that should be a pretty obvious title for his campaign right there. That way it's all clear. And click on continue. I'm just going to click on start new. That way I'm not starting from a draft. And the next thing it's going to ask you is for the budget. So like I recommended before, you want to only run one of these if you're willing to spend about $1,000 a month alone on this campaign. So I'm going to start him off with about $30 a day. But if you're willing to spend a bit more, then you can go ahead and do that. So for him, as an example, we'll just be doing 30. And here's a very important part, and that's the bidding strategy. So kind of like your other campaigns, retargeting and search, you're going to want to focus on maximizing conversions, not the conversion value. So make sure you want to maximize this. That way we're essentially focusing on getting as many leads as possible. And the second thing is make sure that this set a target cost per acquisition or action, also known as TCPA, is switched off. Sometimes Google will automatically have this ticked. If that's the case, make sure that's ticked off because you don't want to be running this, especially at the start of a campaign, as it'll often make your campaign stop spending money entirely and you often get 0 leads out of it. So make sure that that setting is switched off. And the next thing you want to check is that this little box here is also ticked off. So make sure that's not active as well. And now we're going to hit next. So the next thing you're going to have to do is select the location targeting. So for this one, we're specifically targeting Oahu, the city of Honolulu, and the North Shore in Hawaii. So what I can do here is, instead of clicking on all the countries and territories, I'm going to go down here and select another location. And so the North Shore on Hawaii has 2 different main cities, which are Waialua. I'm going to target that one because North Shore is not the name of a city. That's why I'm doing this. And the other one is Haleiwa, also in Hawaii. So I'm going to target that one. And then finally, we're also going to target Honolulu. So that way with those 3, that essentially includes every city location within those 2 locations that we're actually targeting. And once that's done, we're then going to go to the languages section. So for this, it makes sense for him to run this traffic to only people who speak English, or at least speak the English language, because the ads are in English. So make sure that you have that language and only that language set right there. And when it comes down to the final URL expansion, so this is very important, and it's actually a new campaign that you probably have not seen across your other campaigns because it only applies to Performance Max campaigns. And you want to actually change this setting to the other one. And so the reason for that is because what the first option does essentially will scan your website, and depending on who the person is seeing your ad, it'll choose where to direct that person within your website. We don't want to do that. We actually want to have full control of that and essentially lead them to a listing page of houses within that specific part of the website to keep the continuity there between the traffic and where it ends up. That way it hopefully makes your cost per lead lower. So make sure that you change this setting and that it's set to the bottom one. That way you can fully control where people end up once they actually do click on your ad. Once that's done, you can click on more settings and pretty much just change nothing. For the ad schedule, I don't ever recommend doing that for any campaign, so we can leave it as it is. Start and end dates, just double check on this for you, but this sounds good for Lex. And campaign URL options, we actually don't need to go that specific for one of these. So we can go ahead and click next and start building our asset group. So the next thing we're going to do is start building our first asset group. So the way I'm going to do this is, for this case, I like to do 1 asset group per location. So we're going to build out the asset group for Honolulu first. And then once that's done and the campaign is done, we're going to go back and build the second ad group for the North Shore. So when it comes to naming your ad groups, I like to just name it the location name that we're targeting. So in this case, we're starting with Honolulu. So I'm going to name it that. The next thing we're going to do is pop in the final URL. So this is essentially like, where is your traffic going once they click on the ad? So if you don't know how to build one of these links, check out one of Eric's videos on search campaigns and he explains thoroughly how to do this. But I'm going to do this quickly and go on Lex's website right here. He's on a Real Geek site. So I'm going to click and type search and then put results to get all the results of the listings within his website. But since we're doing this for Honolulu here, I want to narrow that down to the city of Honolulu. So I'm going to put in that filter into the URL up here and click enter. That way now we only have listings within that city. But we're also interested only in your townhomes, condos, and single family homes, as that's usually what people are looking for when they type in homes for sale within the Hawaii region. So I only want to focus on those and nothing along the lines of a land listing, for example. So I'm going to add a few extra parameters and add the type of condo and the type of residential homes right there. And finally, I'm going to make sure that they are sorted by newest listings first. So if you're not sure how to do that, like I said, go back to Eric's video on search campaigns and he goes a bit more thoroughly on how to build one of these links. But essentially here, what I have now is a list of listings within Honolulu, which includes condos and detached homes within the correct area. And they are sorted by newest listing first. So essentially this is a good listing page that we can now take this traffic to. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this URL up here and then go ahead and paste it right there. That way, if someone clicks on the ad, they will end up right here. So that's the first thing. So now that we're done adding the final URL, the next thing you want to do is add a call extension to this. So the next thing I want to do is click this plus call button, click on new call right here, and make sure you set this to Canada. If you're in Canada, if you're in the US, make sure you're set to United States. That way it recognizes the area code for your phone number. And what you're gonna do is put your business phone number right in here and click on apply. So I knew his by heart. You probably know yours too. So just put it in there and then click on save. And then it's going to essentially automatically select that one for us. And now we're going to apply it. And that way it adds a call extension to your ad. That way people can directly call you as opposed to going on your website and then calling you. It's just a more direct option to have, and it's always beneficial to add. So that's the call extension. The next thing we're going to do is add some images to this ad. So this is where you're going to want to have the photos that you put aside of this specific location within your desktop, and click on images. And I'm going to go onto upload right here from my computer and select from Lex's folder right there, his 6 Honolulu photos that I selected, and open those within the ad platform. We'll just let that load for a second. So what we're gonna do is now select each of these and make sure that you have all the crop options set correctly. So for example, on this setting right here, I think that the photo looks a little bit nicer if I shift this down. So I'm gonna wanna do that. For the square version of it, I'm gonna maybe shift this a little bit more onto the bedside of the room. And finally, for the last one, I might shift it here. Do whatever you think looks nice. This is slightly opinion-based, but in my opinion, for example, in this one, I think you're better off going with something that's framed a bit more like this, as opposed to this, since there's a bit more going on in the photo on this side of the room. So for each photo, in this case, we have 6, you're gonna have 3 different crops. So you essentially end up with 18 different images for each asset group. So we're good on this one, so we can select those 3 ratios for that photo, and we're gonna repeat the process for the other ones. So now we can see that we have 18 out of 20 photos available that are in use. So essentially, like I mentioned before, we have 6 photos with 3 crops for each, and we can go ahead and save that. Now we're gonna add the logo. So this is where you wanna have your logo on hand. So for this one, I'm gonna click on plus logo and upload Lex's logo from my computer, which can be found right here. Let that load. And same thing, you're gonna wanna crop this. So I'm gonna select this right here, and it essentially gives me 2 different options. Usually does. This logo is actually not wide enough, so we don't get the 4:1 option, but if you do have access to this, make sure you use it. For the square one right here though, I can see that the writing down here doesn't all fit within the square. So what I want to do is include just the part of the logo that does not have any writing. That way it looks a little bit more professional, and center that correctly like this. And that way we can select that one ratio and then click save, and now we have the logo added to the ad as well. Next thing is videos. So for this example, I don't have a video on hand. If you have one, I would recommend that you actually go ahead and use this, but make sure it's the correct type of video. So if you have a type of single listing video or an open house video, those are the types of videos you actually don't want to use for this type of thing, because the thing is, if someone clicks on one of these ads, chances are they're not interested in that specific listing. They're probably interested in looking at a more broad range of homes, right? So if you have a video, what I would recommend is a video of yourself introducing yourself and your team and why your real estate business provides a lot of value and how you do things differently. That's kind of how I would approach the video if you want to add one, so keep that in mind. The next thing are the headlines. So this is where we're going to start using that cheat sheet we have here, and under headlines, I'm going to start copy and pasting these. That way it's nice and plug and play for you, and add these headlines down here. There should be 5. And keep in mind that some of the headlines say city, but that's okay because we're about to change that to tailor it to the specific ad group. So the first one where it says city here, I'm going to change that to Honolulu and copy that and paste it wherever else it says city. And the last thing you want to change is where it says active home listing. So I want to go back to my final URL, copy that into my browser and paste. And I'm just looking for a number here, which is right here. So we know that there are 1,664 listings available within this area. So I'm going to change that number down here to the correct one, which is 1664. That way that's updated. So now your headlines are done. The next thing is the long headline. So I'm going to go and grab the long headline down here and paste it right there. And where it says city, I'm going to replace that with Honolulu. And where it says state, I'm going to replace that with a 2-letter abbreviation for Hawaii, which is HI. So now we have a long headline added to the Performance Max campaign. So the next thing you want to do is add your description. So same thing as before, we're just going to grab the descriptions from the tab within the sheet and start copy and pasting those. And keep in mind on the last description, there will be a field that you will have to update with your information, which is this one right here. So same thing as the headlines, where it says city, change that to the correct city that you are targeting. And where it says state, just make sure you change that to the 2-letter abbreviation of your state or province if you're in Canada. In this case, he's in Hawaii, so that is HI. And now we essentially have our descriptions done. The next thing you'll want to do is type in your business name. So for Lex, it's called Life on Oahu. So whatever your business name is, make sure you add it right there. And finally, now we can start adding some extensions to this asset group. So the first one being site links, the second one being a structured snippet extension, and the third one being the callouts. They can all be found right here. So we're going to start with the site links. We're going to click on plus, and here we're going to add 3 different ones. So the first one, we're going to go by property type here. So Honolulu condos. The second one is going to be for detached homes, so single family homes. And the last one is going to be for luxury homes. If you don't know how to build site links, refer back to Eric's search campaign video, and he shows you exactly how to build one of these in a bit more detail. But if you're unsure, make sure you go off the cheat sheet. So what I did here is I just had city property type, which is essentially Honolulu, followed by either condo, detached, or luxury, which is essentially my first headline for all of them. The second part is the description and the first description. So this is where you kind of just describe what the person is going to be seeing. So for this one, it's always essentially you write search followed by your headline. So I'm going to do that for the 3 of them. If you're unsure, you can refer to the cheat sheet as well. The second description that we're going to be adding is the value proposition. So something that's good about these Real Geeks websites is that they have an MLS connection and that it always updates all the listings every 5 minutes or so. So we can essentially use the headline or description of updated listings 24/7, and we can add that to every single one here. And finally, the last thing you're going to want to do is the final URL for each site link. So again, refer back to the search campaign video to know how to build one of these links. But the easy way to do this is essentially grab that link that you used for your main ad, and you're just going to want to remove or add some filters to it. So for the first one, we're only targeting condos. So where it says type equals res, which essentially targets detached homes, we don't want that. So I'm going to delete it. Hit enter, and that way you can see that it's now showing only condos, and that's now a link I can use for this site link. Same thing for detached homes. I'm going to go up here, but now change con to res and make sure that only detached homes are now showing within the Honolulu area. And now that's a good link I can use for that site link. And finally, the luxury homes. So I'm going to go back in here and re-add the type equals condo, because there can be luxury condos and luxury homes, and we kind of want both of those, and hit enter. But now we can see that some of these might not be considered as a luxury home. So we want to add an extra filter to this one and add a list price min equals about, in his market, $2 million, I would say, for a luxury house. In your market, that number might be different, so make sure you add the correct one. So I'm going to add that filter right here, click enter. Now we can see we have a list of luxury homes and condos, and we can now go ahead and use that link and put it into this third site link. And once that's all done, we can essentially click save down here, and it'll select essentially the 3 site links you just created. And from there, you can just click apply, and now we have site links attached to this asset group. The next thing you're then going to want to change is the call to action. So don't leave this on automated. The best call to action that always works best is learn more. So go down here and make sure you select the correct one, which is right here. So learn more. And now we're going to click this drop down right here to add 2 more asset types. So the first one being structured snippets, and the second one being callouts. So for structured snippets, we're going to click on plus here. We're going to click on plus new structured snippet. And we're gonna actually go with neighborhoods on this one. So I'm gonna click the neighborhoods field, and you wanna add from the cheat sheet about 4 or 5 different neighborhoods. So I'm not super familiar with the neighborhoods in Honolulu, so I'm gonna just essentially type in Honolulu neighborhoods, and I'm gonna just selecting some of these. So I'm gonna have Manoa as the first one. We can have Kaimuki as the second one. The third one can be Fort Shafter, and we'll add just the fourth one here, which can be Palolo, for example. If you're building this in your own area, chances are you'll know which neighborhoods you prefer. So whatever you have a preference over, just make sure you add those neighborhoods. And what that'll do is it'll add this at the bottom of your ad if it comes up in the search results. And it's good because it essentially adds more space and more information to your ad, which pretty much always makes it perform better. So once you have those neighborhoods plugged in, you can essentially click save, just like we did for the site links. Make sure that they're all selected right here, and now click apply. So that's the second asset added to the asset group. And the third one we're gonna do is the callout. So we're gonna add some callouts, and you can find these right here in the callout section of the cheat sheet. And we're gonna click on new callout. And the first one is upsizers. Second one is downsizers. And keep in mind, this is we're essentially targeting the type of buyer. So there's those two, and then there's also relocation and first time buyers. And we like to use these because these 4 types pretty much encompass about 99% of the buyers within most markets. So you can go ahead and add those right there and click on save. Make sure they're all added, and now we're gonna click on apply. And the final thing you're gonna want to do is click on more options down here and change your display path. I usually like to have the display path of having search in the first one, and for the second part, just add the location name. So in this case, Honolulu, and make sure it is all in small caps because that always looks a little bit cleaner on a URL. So now that we're done that, we can then move on and start adding some audience signals to this asset group. So for the audience signals now, what we want to do is click on create an audience signal, and we're gonna name this, for example, Honolulu audience signal. And this is where we're going to want to add the 2 things we had on hand before. One is the retargeting audience that you have within your audiences, and the other one being that custom intent audience that we created for Honolulu. So within custom segments, you're going to click here and click on browse, and it should pop up right here. So we're going to use this Honolulu custom intent one right there. And within your data, you're going to click here and click on browse and include the all website visitors. So what this essentially does is it includes a layer of targeting to your campaign, which is either people who have been to your website or people who have shown interest in already buying a house. And that usually makes your ads perform a lot better when you add those. So once you have those 2 added here within the same audience signal, you can click on save. And we are now done essentially building our first asset group. So we can click on next down here. Just give a quick review of your campaign before you publish it. And once that's all good, you can go ahead and click the button. I'm just gonna wait until this loads. So now that that's loaded, we can essentially double check everything to make sure it's all good. And we can click publish campaign down here. And so now what we have is essentially a Performance Max campaign down here. And if I go into my asset groups, I can see that we have a Honolulu asset group right here. Just the one thing before you move on to creating your other asset group, make sure that this campaign is paused. We don't want to run this until it's completely done. So Google, they always essentially automatically turn on a campaign that you create. So make sure it's paused until you're 100% sure that everything is good to go before running your ads. So now that that's done, we can now move on to adding the second ad set group for the North Shore. So make sure you're in your campaign in the asset group section, and you'll see a plus button up here. So we're gonna click plus on that and start creating the new asset group for the North Shore area. So this one, I'm gonna call it North Shore because that's what we are targeting. And same thing as last time, we're gonna have a final URL. So for Lex's website, we wanna direct this traffic specifically to the search results page of the North Shore, which is a region in this case. And we're also gonna wanna target condos as a type of property and detached single family homes as well. And we're also going to want, like last time, to have these listings sorted by newest listing first. So I'm going to type that in as well as the final parameter. And I'm just going to double check here that my link looks good. So yes, these are all in the North Shore area, and we only see condos and single family homes. So that is now a link I can go ahead and use for the final URL. So now for the call extension, chances are that your phone number would already automatically be added to this because it was added previously to the other ad group. So if it's there, leave it. If it's not, click the edit button and make sure you add that phone call extension. So here we're good to go on that one. The next part is going to be the images. So like last time, I'm going to now upload from my computer the North Shore photos that I downloaded from Lex's website. And I have 5 of those. And like last time, we're gonna have 3 crops for each, so we should end up with 15 different photos for this specific asset group. So once your images are added, you can now add the logo. So I'm going to click edit and upload from the computer, and I'm going to choose Alexa's logo, and it's going to come up down here. So I'm just going to edit this and make sure it's cropped correctly like last time, and select this and hit save. That way now our logo has been added to the asset group. Same thing as last time for the videos. If you have a good one, upload it. If you don't, then don't upload the video. In this case, I don't have one on hand, so I won't. And so the next thing we're going to do is same thing as last time. So have the headlines ready. So I'm going to be using the cheat sheet for this, and same as last time, just copy and paste your headlines from this. There should be 5, and wherever it says city, we're going to change that to North Shore in a second. So once you have all of that, you can update it. Just one more right here. So city in this case is not Honolulu, it's North Shore, because it's an asset group for the North Shore. So I'm going to change that right here and right here. Then I'm going to check my link again. So I'm going to copy and paste my final URL into here and just double check how many listings there are. So there's 55. So I can now go back down to this headline right here and remove that pound symbol and add 55 instead. So those are the headlines done. The next thing we want to do now is add our long headline, which is found right here, and pop it right there. Change the city name to North Shore. The state is Hawaii, so I'm going to change it to HI right there. Make sure you just put the 2-letter abbreviation for either your province or your state. And finally, the descriptions. So same thing as last time. Again, just copy and paste them. There should be 3 where you don't need to change a single thing, but the last one you will need to change the city and the state from the headline in the cheat sheets. So for this one, we're going to add North Shore as the city and HI as the state. So now we have all of our headlines, long headlines, and descriptions done. Next thing you want to do is put business name. It'll probably automatically put it since it already knows what it is. In this case, it's Life on Oahu. If this is blank, make sure you change it and just add your business name. Next is going to be site links. So we're going to want to use our main ad URL for this because it makes it a little bit easier, kind of like last time. So I'm going to edit this and I'm going to create a new site link, and I'm going to remove these current ones so then they don't get added to this one specifically. So click on new site link here, and just like last time, I'm going to have North Shore condos. I'm going to have detached, and I'm going to have as my third one luxury. And just like last time, again, the first description is the same as the headline, but with the word search before it. So I'm going to do that here. And for the second description, I'm going to have updated listings 24/7. So same thing as last time, and you can use this one for all 3. If you forget any of this stuff, you can always go into the site link section right here and you can plug and play these, and it should end up with a similar result to this. And finally, the last thing is the final URL. So what happens if someone clicks on the site link? So for this one, I'm going to take this main ad URL and modify it so that it only includes condos. So the type equals res part, I'm going to remove that. Hit enter, double check that this is only condos, which appears to be correct. And now that's a URL I can use for that one. For the detached homes, I can go ahead and change con to res and hit enter. And now we have only the detached home. So I can copy and paste that into here. And finally, for the final URL for luxury, so I'm going to go back into my detached one and I'm going to re-add condos to the mix because there can be luxury condos as well. And I'm also going to add a list price min equals 2 million in his case. That's what we would consider a luxury house in Hawaii. So make sure that number is accurate to your market. And we're going to hit enter. And now we only have the luxury homes within the North Shore region. So we can take that link and update it within the site link for the third one, which is luxury. And once that's all done, you can hit save right here. Make sure it's only those 3 which are selected. And once you're sure of that, you can click apply and we are now done with the site link. Just like last time, we also want to change the call to action and not have this automated and change it to learn more, as it pretty much always performs better than the other ones. And we're now going to hit this drop down to add 2 more extensions, which are essentially the callouts and the structured snippets. So for structured snippets, I'm going to edit this. And I'm going to remove these that are automatically added and create a new one. And it's going to be neighborhoods again. But this time it's going to be neighborhoods for the North Shore area. So yeah, so here we have a list of them. So there's Haleiwa, that's a good one. And in your case, you probably know your market quite well and you have a preference over neighborhoods. So just put down 4 or 5 neighborhoods that you prefer working in. So once that's done, you can hit save, make sure it applied correctly right here. So we can see that that's good, and click apply. And finally, the callouts, we're gonna click edit on that. And it already automatically selects upsizers, downsizers, relocation, and first-time buyers. Those are actually the exact same that we're gonna use now. So we can essentially just select these and leave it. So essentially just hit cancel, and that should automatically have been applied, as you can see down here. If it doesn't, just edit it and make sure you add those 4. If you forgot where they are in the cheat sheet, they're right here. So you can add those 4 callouts to this asset group as well. So once that's done, one last thing is click on more options and tweak your display path. So then it says search, and then I like to use the location name here. So for this case, have North Shore. And keep in mind, it's a URL based thing. So you don't want to have a space. Instead, you want to have a dash, as it makes it look a lot better, because that's what a URL usually looks like. And also, again, make sure that all of this is in small caps. And finally, the last thing we're going to do is build an audience signal. So like last time, we're going to use the custom intent audience, but for North Shore this time, as well as the retargeting audience within this signal. So I'm going to add a new signal, and I'm going to click a new audience this time and call it North Shore audience signal. And we're gonna select 2 things. The first one is the North Shore custom intent audience right here. So we're gonna have that. And the second thing, like last time, we're gonna have our website visitors retargeting audience. And once you have those 2 things added, you can now click save and scroll down and click save. And once that's all done, your Performance Max campaign should be all done. So we're just gonna double check a few things, but I'm gonna go into here on my campaign and my asset group, so we can see that yes, we have an asset group for Honolulu and one for North Shore as well. Just double check that all of the images and your audience signals are correctly attached. And once that's good to go, you can go ahead and start running this campaign by clicking the pause button up here and clicking enabled. Now keep in mind, for this ad build, as a side note, I did this for only 2 locations. You can do this for as many locations as you want. So if you're only targeting 1 city, then only have 1 asset group. If let's say you had 5 locations that you're targeting, then you're gonna have to repeat this process of creating an asset group 3 more times. That way you have a total of 5. So just keep that in mind. But once that's done and you're confident with it, then you can turn it on and start getting leads from this. So that's how you build a Performance Max campaign.